The first question? You want to repeat it?
Yeah, just about the internal divisions. I mean, that could be a major piece of instability about the country, about the tribal and even divisions within the NTC. I mean, that seems to be the biggest concern going forward, wouldn't you say? Ambassador?
Well, I mean, it's clear that what they have inherited is a country that has these divisions, and in fact, it's the way that Gaddafi maintained power for 42 years. I think the murder of Abdel Fattah Yunus brought these issues to the fore probably more quickly than I think the leadership would have wanted. But in many ways, it may have been a blessing in disguise, and I use that in a very loose term, in the sense that the tribal issues and the East-West and the suspicion of the Libyan regime issues that murder brought to the fore forced I think the TNC leadership to a real understanding that there had to be a reckoning of some kind to reconcile these different issues that they're going to face. And it's probably better that they recognized it prior to taking authority than having to deal with it ab initio from the time that they were in by the time that they started in Tripoli. So yeah, there are tremendous differences, and are we what we are? I think everybody's concerned because we don't know how this is all going to play out. It's clear that while the rebellion in the beginning said we don't want to deal with tribes anymore, we are one Libya, that the fact is that while the tribes have been allowed to maintain a political role in Libya by virtue of the fact that Gaddafi used them to play off each other, they now have to transition into a more of a social role. But it's clear that at least for some time to come, at least in the next several weeks and months, they may still have a political role. And it's going to be a very interesting transition to see how the TNC kind of phases them out of that as they, assume and as they put into process a democratic process in which the tribes will not have the traditional influence that they did have for the last 42 years. And that's only one of the problems. The East-West one is a difficult one, but they've been very good. I think Mark will affirm this, that from the start they understood that the messaging that they brought to Tripoli had to be very effective, it had to be very immediate, and it had to be very powerful in the sense of saying that we are going to be an inclusive government. This is not a Benghazi-centric government that's being imposed on the Tripolitanians and other parts of the country. So yes, there are differences, and they're going to have to be dealt with, and we will, to the extent that we understand it in terms of other crises that we've dealt with. Perhaps there are other models in world history that we can bring to bear to show them if they ask. But I think, as Mark said, at the end of the day, this is Libyan-led. They have to overcome their own differences.
Thank you. We have two more questions. If I could ask you one question each.
Andy Quinn from Reuters. A slightly more parochial question. You mentioned that there are a lot of international companies which are knocking on the doors in Libya now to get business, and you want U.S. companies to be there. Are you concerned that the U.S. is missing the boat a little bit here? And what can you do, or what can the U.S. government do to get U.S. companies in there for the business? And the second, just slightly is related, on the contracts, you mentioned, the TNC always said that they would uphold the contracts, but in your statement you made it sound as though they were going to be able to pick and choose about which ones they want to keep, which ones they want to revise, and which ones they want to discard. What's your understanding of what their position is on these contracts? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think American companies have missed the boat at this particular point. I mean, we're going to be working with American companies to try to figure out what's the best strategy to make sure that our companies have as good a shot on a level playing field as everybody else. And we're focusing on that right now. There's going to be several meetings certainly before I depart for Tripoli, whenever that is, in which we'll try to work with American companies because I think we do have the expertise from A to Z, everything that they need. What I meant to say that they've already stated that that they will uphold all contracts. I don't know if they were specifically limiting that to the oil contracts, or in fact they were saying that for the whole universe of contracts out there. What I was trying to make a point was that there were hundreds of billions of dollars of contracts that have been let out and that will have to be rationalized at one point or another. Some of them may be good, some of them may be continued, some of them may be ridiculous, because there have been incompetence, certainly, and there was a lot of corruption. So I think it would behoove them to say that they're going to take a good look at the overall issue of the contracts that were done under the Gaddafi regime, but they've said for those that obviously that are above board and were done, according to the law, that they'll maintain them.
If I could just add to that, I met with the Assistant Secretary at the Department of State for EB, for Economic and Business, yesterday, and they said they're very concerned about finding ways to get information to American business who would like to invest in Libya. So that's a good address to go to. Our final question?
Well, there's already been so many great questions. I'll just throw out one quick one. Thinking about the reward that's been offered by the Libyans for the capture of Muammar Gaddafi, dead or alive, what are some thoughts on how that might impact the ability to keep him alive, to bring him to some sort of justice in the future?
The TNC leadership's been very clear that they want this group brought to justice. I mean, obviously, if there's if he's holed up in a place and there's a firefight and circumstances are beyond their control, I mean, anything can happen. But I think we have to go with what they have said publicly, that they want a trial and they want to bring this man and his cronies to trial, and to show that Libya can conduct a trial, and to bring him and have him, go through a trial process for all of his crimes, not just those starting on February 16th. But like I said, any circumstance can occur. But I think we have to go with the sense that they want him at trial.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Middle East Institute and IRD, I'd like to thank Ambassador Cretz and Mark Ward and Travis Gartner. It was a very interesting afternoon.